if you're going to support Israel and you refuse to preach the gospel to them, that's, what's the point, because that's who Jesus came to die for. He said he came for his people first.
Right.
So just letting them, be deceived and being blind and saying, I'm okay with you being blind.
Right.
So you're going to die next week, but I don't want to preach the gospel to you because I don't want to offend you.
Right.
So, I always feel like when you support Israel, supporting Israel is preaching the gospel, is showing love, is showing the love of Christ, what Christ did, on the cross. And because that's the main thing, because you can be a Jewish person and you're going to die and go straight to hell.
Which is
if you
so
don't know
sad
Christ.
if we don't tell them about Jesus, who is the Messiah. Yeah.
But there are some Christians that believe that the Jewish people can automatically go to heaven if you don't speak to them about Christ.
I've heard of that. I have heard of that, which is not scriptural. I don't know where they get that from. And, just this past year, there was a Holocaust survivor, incredible man, who was connected to a very prominent organization here in the United States who stands with and supports Israel. And the Holocaust survivor passed away. And my heart was torn. I was like, Lord, there he was with that pastor here at this engagement and there at that engagement and that event and this event and that. And I said, and because that particular organization is utterly opposed to sharing the gospel with the Jewish people, even though that amazing Holocaust survivor was around Christian circles, if no one loved him enough to share the gospel with him, then where is he for eternity? And I was like, just a phenomenal man and a Holocaust survivor, having been through so much, yet still, at the end of the day, he could potentially not have gone to heaven. That really made me sad. And I thought, wow, I didn't have access to that person, but I knew who he was with on regular occasion, who is a prominent Christian in America. And I thought, wow, God, I personally feel like we have the duty to tell people the gospel just like Jesus said. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the person's decision whether or not they decide. We shouldn't make that decision for them and say, I'm not going to tell them because I don't want to offend them. That's not anywhere in the scripture, and it's very sad. It's very sad.
Now, what about the Messianic Jews that are in Israel? I mean, how are they received with their own family?
So the Messianic Jewish community in Israel is thriving and amazing. In fact, the friend I was just talking about, he helps plant Messianic Jewish congregations all throughout Israel, and he's going to bring some here to the United States. He's amazing. However, the Jews and the Messianic Jews are very separate, because the Messianic Jews believe that Jesus is the Messiah. They're Jewish by blood, and they're Jewish by, growing up or whatever their heritage or their belief system, but then they come to the realization of saying, you know what, Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, and then they're called Messianic Jews. They're not accepted by the general Jewish population, so they're not supported. But the Messianic Jewish people themselves are a very tight-knit community, and they help one another tremendously, and they're doing great work. And they're hearing stories of not only Jews coming to Christ in the land, but the crazy part is that Jesus is out there doing his witnessing himself, because Muslims are coming to Christ in Israel. And they're doing it because they said, Jesus himself came to me. Jesus came to me in a vision. Jesus came to me in a dream. Jesus healed me. So Jesus is out there evangelizing himself in Israel and the Middle East. So it's incredible what is going on.
Praise God. So how is like we were talking about the Muslims, so how are the Muslims treated in Israel?
Exactly. Many of them have Israeli citizenship. Now, you have to understand that Israel has the section that's called Israel, but then it also has, if you remember, there was a section where Jews were moved out of the land, and that was the Gaza Strip. So Jews once lived there amongst everybody else, and then Ariel Sharon decided all the Jews need to come out and we're going to give the Palestinian people a piece of the land. Now the Arab Muslims that live in Gaza and the Arab Muslims that live in areas that are under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, terrorist organization, those people suffer greatly. However, you have to understand that they're not living in Israel. The people that live in Israel, the jurisdiction of Israel and the nation of Israel live in freedom. And so I have a friend actually. He is, of Pakistani descent, grew up in England, and he just had heard from all of his Muslim family, that they didn't like the Jews, and he didn't really know why, but he grew up with that whole vibe in his house that we don't like the Jews, and the Jews this and the Jews that, and everything was the fault of the Jews. Well, he went to go visit some Pakistani relatives, and while he was there, he got radicalized. And he really got deep into it, which he wasn't raised that way, but visiting the land, he got deep into it, and he decided that he really hated Israel, and he was going to go to Israel himself to see how horrible this place was and how they oppress the Muslim people and how they're just despicable. And so he got on a plane, went to Israel, and they asked him, "Why are you here?" And he told them. He actually told them, "I'm here because I want to see for myself how horrible you all are to my type of people." And he just went on and on and on. And they questioned him, but they let him through. And so he got into the land of Israel, and he was just looking for, he really wanted to see everything that he'd heard in Pakistan and everything that he'd heard about Israel being an oppressor and mistreating people. So he was looking for it, and he said he went to a mall, and he walked up to these Muslim Arabs, and he said, "It must be really rough for you here." And they looked at him, and they were like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean for us here? What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, you're Muslims, you're Arabs, you're living here in Israel. It must be really tough for you here. They must treat you horribly." And the man looks at his wife, and he looks at my friend, and he says, "We have Israeli citizenship. We have the rights that everybody else has here. We have the same rights as all the Jewish people, we're shopping here in the mall with everybody. Our children go to Israeli schools. We enjoy the freedoms that we have here. We would never live in the Palestinian territories because then we would be oppressed." So this was shattering everything that he thought Israel was. And he continued for 2 weeks in the land and having experiences like this and not seeing what he thought he was going to see. There was no oppression of the people. Everyone was eating at the same restaurants and driving cars and living in homes next to each other. So he realized that everything he had believed in was a lie. And so now, he's literally telling his story to millions of people so that they can know, you know what? Go see Israel yourself, because everything that you're being taught is a total lie. And this came from someone who came from a Muslim background, who literally got radicalized and went to go see Israel and how horrible it was himself, and discovered all of it had been a lie. So it's really fascinating. Israel is an amazing place. If anyone hasn't gone, I would encourage them to go. We have a website if you have interest in going. You can always email us because we put tours together. But it's important for people to get educated, Christians to get educated, to experience the land, to see it themselves, to know the people, to be able to share with other people. When they hear lies in the media or they hear lies from groups of people, they know the truth. No, I've been there. I've walked there. I've seen it. So it works. It works also when people are talking about or against Jesus. You're like, "No, I saw the empty tomb. I saw that he's not there. My Lord is risen from the dead. Just like he said," or "I saw the Sea of Galilee where he walked, and I saw the town of Capernaum, and I saw," so it helps on so many levels to go to the land and understand, the roots of today, the ancient history, it just is, and that's why I've had so many trips, because there's so much to learn every time.
So what is the difference between the Palestinian territories and actual Israeli territories? Because in the media, just like you said, you see and you hear how the Palestinians are being oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you said in Israel, people can go and have freedom in Israel, moving about and interacting with people. But what is it like in the Palestinian territories? Have you been able to experience that?
Well, first of all, there is not one Jew in the Palestinian territory. They will not allow one Jew to step into their Palestinian territory. That's number one. That's a big difference between the Palestinian territories and Israel, because in Israel, there's Muslims, there's, Baha'i, there's Ethiopian Jews, there's, Chinese Jews, Russian Jews, there's people from America that have immigrated there. There's everybody and everything there. There's everything there in Israel. In the Palestinian territories, number one, I'll tell you, if you're on a tour in Israel and your tour guide is Jewish, you literally have to go up to the Palestinian territory. Your tour guide has to get off the bus, and you have to get a Muslim Arab tour guide to get on the bus to take you into that territory. They are not safe. They will be killed. It's not safe. Which is really a big difference.
So the Jewish citizen is not allowed to go into Palestine, but are the Palestinians allowed to come into Israel?
Okay, so there's
Israeli territory or Jewish territory.
So there's a couple of things there. Yes, I know what you're asking. So yes, Israelis cannot go into the areas that are under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority. Now, the other part is you said Palestine. There's never been a nation of Palestine. There isn't a nation of Palestine. Palestine has never existed. It's a name that people created.
It's a territory, a name of the territory that the Romans gave for that,
Palestina, for that whole area. Yeah.
Right.
Because the Philistines were the enemies of the Jews.
Right.
So they wanted to give them a slap in the face and call that whole area Palestina.
Right.
So, but there's been no nation of Palestine ever. And so the people, what's interesting there is that the Gaza Strip and the areas.
Wait, can you reiterate who the Palestinians are for Max Bowie, please?
Who they are? Well, there's been, what I was saying was that there's never been in the history of the world a country or a nation of Palestine, nor is there a country or a nation of the world today called Palestine. So initially the name came from the Romans, because the Romans hated the Jews, as we know from history. And so the Romans wanted to give a slap in the face to the Jews, and they called it, the whole area, the Palestina, which was like after the name of the Philistines, which are the arch enemies of the people of Israel. So that's where that name came from initially. But there's never been a nation or a people called Palestine or the Palestinian people.
Okay. No, keep going.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, so, you got something?
No,
okay, so how important is building the temple in Jerusalem right now?
The third temple?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is fascinating because there's an institute, it's called the Temple Institute, and it just gives me shivers up and down my spine talking about them, because they are progressively, year after year after year, getting everything in place to build the third temple. They literally have the golden menorahs exactly to the description of how they were supposed to be created at the time of the Bible. They got the garments of the high priests. On one of my trips there, they had just completed the entire wardrobe of the high priests. They have recently selected the people who would be part of the Sanhedrin, which hasn't been, how long is the Sanhedrin? They haven't been around for like 2,000 years. And now they've just done the selection process for the people that will be in the Sanhedrin. So the third temple they have all the plans in place. They have everything ready to go. And it's been said that they even know the location of the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh yeah, that's what I've heard. I heard that they have the Ark of the Covenant. They pretty much have everything but the temple being built.
Right. And what's significant is that prophecy teachers have said in the past that it will be from the third temple that the Antichrist will go into the temple after 3.5 years and will declare himself a god.